A definition of sustainability has to include an understanding of both people and planet.
I'll never forget going into Beacon's closet in New York, and I couldn't believe that I could go in there and they were like, well, where are your pieces that you want to exchange for credit? And I was like, what do you mean? So they're like, oh no, that's a circular thing. That was a new concept to me.
It's really the consumer who can create this demand for brands to change.
Another word I would bring in here is power. Work with brands that you can stick behind, that you're genuinely passionate about.
Today, we'll be turning our attention to the world of sustainability. I'm Emily Chan, Sustainability Editor at British Vogue, and today I'm joined by three wonderful panellists. My colleague, Naomi Smart, Commerce Director at British Vogue, Alice Aedy, documentary photographer, filmmaker and co-founder of EarthRise, and Manuela Gesslbauer, Marketing Manager at Tencel. Let's begin. What does sustainability mean in fashion? So Alice, maybe you could kick off with, what your interpretation of sustainability is.
I guess from my perspective, I'm a filmmaker and a photographer, and I, focus on climate issues, but mainly on human stories. And for me, the big transition into covering those climate issues was realizing this intersection that climate change is a human rights issue. It's a social justice issue. We know that the fashion industry has a disproportionate impact on the global south, on women. A definition of sustainability has to include an understanding of both people and planet.
Yeah, for sure. And I think people are often kind of left out of the conversation because of the focus on the environment.
I think for us, sustainability is really in our DNA. Just to give you a little bit background what Tencel is. So Tencel is a branded fiber. It's a wood-based fiber, and we use wood from responsibly sourced wood sources. And I think what is really important for us is to give transparency to consumers, that they know what we are talking about, because the supply chain of fashion is so huge. And I think to really understand each step, what it takes to get a garment into the shops is very important from a consumer level.
Nowadays, the word is used so much.
I think it is totally overused. Like the amount of press days or showroom appointments I do to when I look at new collections, and the PR will go through and say, oh, this is a sustainable denim line. And then they'll move on to the next thing. So it's like they've ticked that box. And I have started to go, well, how is it sustainable? And quite often there's this kind of a panic because they're like, oh no, you're delving deeper. It's like, no, don't greenwash it. And also that's what's so important about where we come from, a publisher and a media element, is that we have to be asking those questions because they need to be reporting back to the brands, being like, okay, it's coming from every angle. Yes, we can't just have a sustainable area of our collection. We all have to think about everything we're producing in a sustainable way.
So another buzzword that's used a lot in sustainability circles is this idea of regeneration, so the need to give back to the environment. So Alice, I wondered what your thoughts were on that.
Regeneration, this idea of giving back, I think is fundamentally inspired by nature. And I think, the more I learn about nature, the more I realize it can itself be our greatest teacher. I remember reading once, there is no waste in nature. Waste, disposability have been so long embedded in the fashion industry with little thought to where that waste is going, the people that it's impacting, the environment that it's impacting. So I'm inspired by the idea of regeneration, of giving back to leaving, not just treading lighter on the planet, but actually leaving the planet in better shape than when we left, and that can be a really positive legacy of the industry, not just to be carbon neutral, but carbon negative.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that is where the conversation is heading in the fashion industry, actually, to make the industry not less bad, but actually for the industry to be able to have a positive effect on the planet. So linked to this idea of regeneration is the idea of a circular fashion economy. So biodegradability is a really important part of that.
Our fibers, so Tencel fibers, are 100% biodegradable and compostable.
So the circularity topic is such a huge one at the moment because, there's so many areas of it. There's obviously vintage, which has been, people talk about vintage like it's a new thing. It's not. It's been going on for that's how I got into fashion, and how I bought into fashion when I was a teenager was the most affordable way for me to buy fashion. And actually, unfortunately, we've got to a point where now fast fashion is, those price points are something that has kind of maybe overtaken. I think with resale, I think what we're going to see in the future is at what point do the brands start taking over their own resale market? So, you know, the big fashion houses, are they, again, going back to vintage? Like, I'll never forget going into Beacon's Closet in New York, and I couldn't believe that I could go in there and they were like, well, where are your pieces that you want to exchange for credit? And I was like, what do you mean? So they're like, oh no, that's a circular thing. So come in, bring your pieces that you don't want anymore, you'll get a credit at the store and then you can buy vintage again. And that was a new concept to me, but it'll be very interesting to see whether the luxury houses start to build upon that concept, because actually that's such a fun way of shopping as well, I think.
I think we are seeing brands embracing this opportunity too. A lot of brands are, as you say, embedding resale into their operations. We've seen the likes of Gucci and Valentino talking about selling vintage pieces now and really embracing the upsurge in vintage that we've seen of late. Tencel has been around for 30 years. What sort of progress have you seen in the industry?
When we look back 30 years, in June the first fiber left our factory site. So it's a very exciting moment for us, which we really want to celebrate with our partners. When it comes to brands, what we are also offering is, with the 30 years, we have such a knowledge when it comes to fiber, when it comes to sustainability, the supply chain and everything. We have the best people in our organization who can also help brands to do this transformation in a more sustainable way.
In recent years, we've seen a lot of brands that maybe weren't talking about sustainability in the past, really kind of wanting to talk about it and making these commitments. Alice, I wondered if I could maybe ask you about what you have made of some of these commitments that we've seen from brands to date.
I think when they mean them, they're really exciting. I think clearly there's a lot of greenwashing, and I think in a way, climate delay is the new climate denial. Kicking the can down the road, making false promises is really the new danger and the new threat. And as we've mentioned, people like you, Emily, doing that journalism, asking the tough questions and really holding these companies to account is what is absolutely crucial right now.
I wondered if we could maybe talk a bit about some of the younger designers that are leading the way. And Naomi, obviously in your experience, you've seen a lot of young designers coming through that are really embracing sustainability and embedding it in the work that they're doing.
There was a new brand called Zazie, and they work on the ground. They work with amazing female artisans in Afghanistan and in India, and they really give back to their local communities. And so I think the human aspect and understanding that supply chain is just, it's so important for those designers to think about that at the beginning of their career. You know, obviously the big fashion brands they've got to work backwards to work forwards to like reset all of their processes. Whereas if you're a new brand, you can start at the beginning, and you know all of those processes and approach has to come from a sustainable outlet.
That's also for us important, because when it comes to communication, we want to open it to really get the people into our factory, that they see where it comes from, where the starting point is. And also brands who are already in the business since decades, it's important that they start already at the beginning of the design. When they start designing a product, that they think, which fabric will I choose, which fiber do I need, that they get this look. And I think that young designers are doing it very good already, when we really are consulting also brands, large brands, how they can get the change from polyester more into the biodegradable fibers. And it's not a change you can do within a year, within 5 years. It needs to start somewhere, but it leads to a more sustainable future.
The role of the consumer is crucial if we're going to see change within the industry. And so, Naomi, I wondered from your perspective, what do you see the role of the consumer being when it comes to really accelerating change?
Pressure. Really, you know, at the end of the day, as the consumer, the power that you hold is that, you know, if you don't agree, you're not going to buy it. We have such a communication system now, whether it's you can DM them, you can Instagram and social and TikTok about, you know, your opinion on certain brands' products, and that can go viral. I mean, obviously, you know, it shouldn't be about a cancel culture, but there's definitely like accountability, you know, with accounts like Diet Prada.
From Tencel's perspective, what are some of your hopes for the future for the fashion industry?
I think for us as Tencel, it's really important to stick to our targets. So we are the only cellulosic fiber producer which has science-based targets. When it comes to sustainability in general, we are ranked as one of the 14th most most sustainable companies in the world, which I think it's massive.
I think it's all about having a more considered approach to fashion and the way we produce fashion and also the way we consume fashion. And I wondered, you know, in terms of what else brands could do we really need to look at the solutions that exist and really kind of focus on the solutions so that brands can have a more positive impact on the planet?
This conversation around sustainability, around what's best for the planet and for human rights, can no longer happen in a vacuum in the unfashionable hemp corner of Fashion Week. It has to be front and centre. And that's about values, it's about behaviour change.
You know, do we, as we've kind of discussed before, do we need legislation?
Yes, there has to be faster action within government because that's where the regulations are actually going to come from. People will not police themselves to the level that we need them to be. I mean, that sounds very kind of, you know...
No, but it's true. We can't expect profit-making companies to hold themselves accountable.
Yeah.
It would be deeply naive to do that, so of course we need legislation.
Yeah.
And obviously one thing that brands can really do is choose more sustainable fabrics, and you know, these Vogue Tencel t-shirts are obviously a prime example of that.
I think also, you know, we've just launched a sustainability page dedicated in our issue that we do every month now, so it is completely woven into our monthly ideas meetings. It's like it's there. It's like it's so important. So I think that is a really, really good step.
Thank you everyone for such an interesting and insightful conversation on sustainability.
Yeah, exactly.